Welcome back, Grind and Grace. Let me ask you something. So they did this experiment, and in this experiment, they show what happens when you take a person's hope away, and how do you tend to deal with it. So we're going to ask you, what do you do when you're feeling hopeless? So, matter of fact, they did this experiment where they have a whole room, and they introduce a lab. They introduce many different animals, like a Labrador. They introduce chimpanzees. They introduce many different animals. And in the case with the Labrador, they have one side electrified and one side not electrified, and they put colors on it. One side blue, one side red. So then when it turned red, the electricity would be there, and the dogs would start to see a pattern. Then they would go to the other side. Then eventually they ended up electrifying the entire room. I feel like first the dog would retreat to safety. Then they electrify a different corner of the room with that same color, the dog would retreat to safety. They put three corners red, the dog learned, hey, let me stay in this one corner that's blue. Then eventually they started making all the corners red, so no matter what, the dog was getting electrified. And when the dog didn't have any options, they would start urinating on themselves. They would actually start hurting themselves, like biting themselves and just causing harm to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like sometimes if we feel we don't have any options, we start self-deprecating or self. Is that the word deprecating?
Yeah, is when you're talking bad about yourself or thinking bad of yourself.
Talking bad, yeah, doing things that are harmful to us, like drugs or over drinking. I mean, just various coping mechanisms.
Okay.
So
I was wondering where you're going with this.
yeah,
I was like, man, it sounds horrible.
I know it sounds terrible. Actually, I didn't do the experiments, man. I did not conduct it. I just learned about these things. But what have you typically noticed people do in situations like this?
Yeah, so uh, as a kid, I was in a similar situation
Mm.
where, not to go too deep in the story because we didn't set a timer again,
Oh,
uh, is
yeah, I'll look at it.
I experienced
Go deep.
a short stint of homelessness when I was like 13 years old, where my dad was an alcoholic and they kicked me out when I was 13. And so I I felt hopeless at that point because I didn't have anywhere to go. And like I would try to, luckily it was summertime, so I was able to justify spending the night at some friends' houses. But it went on so long that school was starting. And I was like, now I no longer could justify it. And so that hopelessness
Mm.
uh, ingrained in me that I never wanted to be in that situation again where I didn't have alternate plans. So I think that's what helped me become such a strategic person. And so I,
When you say homeless, like were you living on the street or like?
well, I can't say what I did because I don't want to admit to anything on.
Yeah. Hey, you did what you had to do.
Yeah, I did what I had to do to survive, and um, and that's what it was. It was purely survival. It was never in a game scenario.
Right.
Um, so anyway, I never wanted to be in a situation of hopelessness, and so I always have a plan B. I don't know
Mm.
if you noticed, but I always have multiple scenarios for everything. If this
Mm.
doesn't work, this, and as soon as my options dwindle down, I come up with some more, just
Mm.
just so I'm never out.
Yeah. Never in a situation where you're hopeless.
Yeah, yeah, because being hopeless, oh my goodness, like it truly is a sense of
Yeah.
hopeless. Like I have nothing, and that's where people feel that they need to take their lives.
Right.
And all I can encourage is the people to, if you're not a strategic person, is to get someone who is strategic in your life that can help you cover your blind spots
Mm.
because they can they can quickly come up with scenarios because strategic people are natural problem solvers that they can come up with multiple scenarios for you almost
You're
instantaneously.
strategic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I share something on that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, true story. So it's probably one of his first times coming, like when shortly after we met, we invited him over for dinner. And as we're cooking, me and my wife were in the kitchen talking. We're all in the kitchen just talking, people gathered in the kitchen. And one of the Tupperware was too close to the oven and somehow caught on fire. So the Tupperware catches on fire, and I have an idea of what we need to do with the Tupperware. My wife has an idea of what we need to do with the Tupperware, and we're kind of like tug of warring it. And in the meanwhile, the Tupperware is dripping these balls of fire. Literally, there's like these fireballs dripping
Yeah.
from it. And we're like, oh, we should do it this way. Oh, we should do it that way. And he sees the problem, and he doesn't have not a time to talk. So he just sees it. He just he puts it in the water, and they were like, that's one way. We'd have been like 10 more seconds tug of war over there and getting fireballs everywhere. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, he is strategic, and you need strategic people in your life for sure. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. It was like it was yesterday. It was over 10 years ago.
Seriously,
That's
emotion
crazy,
plus
man.
information equal long-term memory.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's been that long.
Definitely. I'm sorry. So what were you saying? What else?
No, so what I was saying that if somebody is hopeless,
Mm.
uh, and they're not a strategic person, is to get strategic people in their lives.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And, you know, and don't use not being a strategic person as an excuse not to plan because we are not static. And just because it's not part of your personality doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing it. And so, uh, it's like it may not fit your personality, but it doesn't mean that you now have an excuse not to have your bases covered just because it's not part of your personality. And so, uh, you know, you can't do anything with excuses.
It's true.
And so,
Well, you can, but they're not going to do anything for you. You can act like, I mean, and that's blame. But when you
yeah,
decide to take ownership, if everything is someone else's problem, then it's not your fault
yeah,
while you're in whatever scenario. But if we decide to own that and say, hey, regardless, or even if it's not your fault, I'm going to treat this as if I have the solution to get out of it.
yeah. And I've I've never I can't speak from a firsthand perspective of somebody that let's say you've had suicidal thoughts or you have someone in your life that committed suicide. I'm not saying that they made excuses or they took an easy way out or anything because I can't relate to how they felt. Uh, and
And some people may not even have suicidal thoughts, but they may just be like, well, hey, Lord, like, if you want to take me home early,
yeah,
go for
that's called ideation, suicidal ideation. So like thinking about not being here.
it. Mm.
I think anyone has had that at some point.
Yeah, at some point or another. I know I even have.
Yeah,
And I remember thinking like, oh, I remember telling my wife, hey, if you ever find me dead, so I would never kill myself. So it's a murder.
yeah,
And then, and I remember feeling at times like, goodness, what I'm dealing with. Like, Lord, if you took me home now,
yeah.
that's on you. Hey, I wouldn't mind. At least I feel like I'm
Be
going
done
to
with this
heaven.
here. Yeah,
Yeah. Hey, my wife is covered. She got life insurance. She'll have her millions.
yeah.
But of course, and I've been foolish enough to even tell her like, hey, I'm feeling like this, and she's like, are you serious?
I
Like, I
wouldn't
never
say that
say
was
that.
foolish. That's not foolish. I mean,
I mean, to be like, well, hey, you're going to be covered because of the life insurance,
oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
and for her to be like, you think that life insurance is anything? Like, yeah,
Compared to having
who
it.
you exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, it's not anything. Well, how
There's
much you
definitely
need?
is,
You need 20 mil?
there definitely is some
No, I'm
selfishness
kidding.
to that aspect.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And a lot of people
sometimes you get tired.
feel that way towards people that commit suicide in their lives is like they feel that they were so selfish because they left them behind
Of
and feel
course.
abandoned.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's not the point because that's not the only thing that happens in hopelessness. You
yeah,
can have
yeah.
hopelessness in many scenarios
And still
where
have options.
you get in a bad business deal. And I mean, I may have said in another previous episode that you know, if you have a cut on your foot and it you get gangrene in your foot, you have to cut off your foot. Like you just have to cut your losses sometimes.
What if
And
I don't want to cut my foot off?
well, then you're gonna die. So so
There's no way to save it at that point.
yeah, if once gangrene sets in, like I mean, as far as I know, gangrene. My experience with gangrene is TV. So like, I'll put
If
that
some
out there.
physician's going to write in the comments, well, actually,
Yeah.
that's actually good. Hey, if you know a way to fight gangrene, let us know.
Yeah. I don't even care how to fight gangrene. But it was more a story aspect of saying that if
Well, no, that might be part of a good analogy, though.
I'm saying it defeats my analogy. My analogy is you're in the situation, the foot's gonna kill you. You need to cut off your foot.
Well, but
You
maybe there's another way, though. And may I add this?
no, if it's an absolute, like if your foot is going to kill you. And see, postponing, you can postpone it as long as you can, but
But once is at a certain point,
there's gonna be a point that it reaches
I
that
see.
you
I'm
have to
with
make a
you.
decision and you need to go ahead and cut your losses.
I'm with you.
And so
I understand that.
hopelessness sets in because you don't think you have options. And there always are options.
I agree.
And no matter what in life, you can always start again.
Always.
No matter what you lost, no matter who you lost,
True.
you can always start over.
Look at Job. He lost everything, even people.
I mean, even if you take it out of a non-biblical perspective, because the
Look
biblical
at Trump. He
miracles,
lost things 3 to 5 times. Look at Sam Walton.
everyone, like
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many stories,
Cat Williams said he went broke 4 times.
and it doesn't even have to be all financial.
Yeah.
You know, it could be, oh, I lost my wife and
Well, a lot
kids
of
or
times
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, that's a tough one.
yeah. I mean, definitely if they passed away,
Yeah, yeah.
God forbid, but like if they just
God forbid.
left you in a sense, like divorce or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. Like, yes, grieve, get through your pain, pick yourself up and start again.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I understand. I'm not an emotional person. I may not be speaking to a lot of people out there. Um, Charles here is more of an emotional person, so it, he,
Yeah, I can get very emotional.
you may grieve much longer than I do, and you may grieve in a
Much
different
stronger,
way.
probably.
Yeah, you may grieve in a different way.
I don't grieve long. I grieve strong. Meaning, like, if you grieve and you had one tear, I grieve and snot be coming out my nose, and my shirt will be drenched. And maybe if you grieve for an hour, maybe I grieve for 98 minutes. Yeah,
That's very specific.
you know, I don't know.
98 minutes.
Yeah, you know.
So yeah, nah, I get it, but
98 minutes, you think about that? Yeah, yeah. There was something I was going to say. Something came to my mind when you were saying that, but
yeah, probably should wrap it up.
yeah, let's wrap it up. And that's it, guys. Cheers. Oh, thank you. Share this episode with somebody if it meant something to you. That's all.
Like and subscribe. See you later.